Welcome to Hye Roots, Descendants of Ararat. I am George Aghjayan, your host for this episode of the first series devoted to Armenian genealogy. With each new episode of Hye Roots, we will explore different resources that will aid those wishing to learn more about their Armenian family history. Today, I am joined by Elizabeth Chouldjian. Many of you will know her from her years of activism for the Armenian cause through her work with the Armenian National Committee of America. She is affectionately known by her Armenian nickname, Yesso, and has most interesting question for us today. Hi, Yesso.
Hi, George. Thanks for this opportunity to chat.
We're happy to have you here today. Can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up, what interested you in this person we are curious about, and what you can tell me about her?
Absolutely. So I was born and grew up in San Francisco, California, in the vibrant Armenian community there. And there, San Francisco welcomed my family to the United States in the 1960s through the Armenian National Committee for Homeless Armenians ANCHA program. George Aghjayan, Suren Sarayan, who were leaders of that program, were based out of there, and my family was able to emigrate to there at that time. And today's discussion actually stemmed from a conversation I had with one of our very active leaders in our community, Musher Andonian. We were chatting recently about the roots of the Armenian community in San Francisco and some of the great leaders of our community there. And the discussion came to Mrs. Violet Goliti, whose name was well known in my family as I was growing up, because as a longtime leader of the Armenian Relief Society and in our local St. Gregory Armenian Church, she had been welcoming so many to the San Francisco Armenian community, her through the various organizations and the church that she served. And my interest truly got piqued when Musher shared that she was related to Armen Garo, of course, the first Armenian ambassador to the United States back in 1919. And so, among other things, a Fedai who had served the cause of freedom for the Armenian nation, both during the defense of Western Armenia and then ultimately as a diplomat, both of Armenia, and then prior to that as a elected official in the parliament of the Ottoman Empire. And so that connection, Mrs. Goleti's incredible leadership in our community and her connection to Armenian advocacy and Armenian diplomacy through Armen Garo is what got me started and really interested into this topic.
It's a fascinating topic. It definitely piqued my interest, and I thank you for bringing it to my attention. Let's take a look inside the vault. Armen Garo was born Karakin Basturmajan in Erzurum in 1872. He joined the Armenian Revolutionary Federation while a student in Europe. He was one of the primary organizers and participants in the takeover of the Ottoman Bank in 1896 in protest of the Hamidian massacres of between 100 and 300,000 Armenians. Afterward, he continued his studies in Europe and spent time in the United States, even becoming a citizen in 1901. He would return to the Caucasus to organize self-defense during the Armenian-Tatar conflicts from 1905 to 1907. After the Young Turk Revolution in 1908, he returned to the Ottoman Empire to serve as a deputy in parliament. During World War I, he headed an Armenian battalion in the Caucasus. After the war, during the First Armenian Republic, he served as Armenia's ambassador to the United States. He passed away in Geneva in 1923. With a research question such as this, one of the first places I start is a search of the Hairenik digital archives. The archives can be searched for free with a snippet view of the results. Full access can be purchased for $35 a year. The archives contain digital versions of the Hairenik Daily newspaper, the Hairenik Weekly newspaper, the Armenian Weekly newspaper, and the Hairenik Amsakir Monthly. While not all issues have been digitized, close to 85% has been completed. When searching for Goliti, one result caught my eye. The The front page of the June 16, 1960 issue of the Hairenik Weekly detailed the funeral of Solomon Talerian, one of the central figures of Operation Nemesis, the effort by the Armenian Revolutionary Federation to carry out justice against those responsible for the Armenian genocide. Talerian had assassinated Talat Pasha, one of the primary architects of the genocide, in 1921 in Berlin. The headline noted, quote, "Thousands mourn passing of man who was symbol of Armenian courage," end quote. Buried within the article, Violet was mentioned as one of the speakers that day and that she was the daughter of Armen Garo. A 1978 article in the San Francisco Examiner titled "There Really Were Starving Armenians" supplies a more detailed account of Violet's life as well as her Armenian name, Manushag Basturmadjan, along with a pre-genocide photograph of the Basturmadjan family. The article notes that Violet's father had been killed during the genocide, and thus she could not be the daughter of Armen Garo, as had been stated in the 1960 Hairenik Weekly article. The article also notes that she had a sister and two brothers and their experiences during the genocide. Significantly, Violet spoke of how she met her husband in Constantinople and their brief courtship. Quote, "Cousins introduced us on Monday, we were engaged on Thursday and married on the following Sunday. A few days later, we left for the United States," end quote. Thus, once Violet's ship manifest was located, it would supply a good estimate for the exact date in 1922 of their marriage. The ship manifest containing Violet and her husband Edward was easily located with a search for those with the surname of Goliti arriving in 1922. Note that the ship was stated to have left Constantinople on September 9, 1922. Also note that Violet, or Manushag, was entering the country as a citizen of the United States based on her marriage to Edward, who had already become a naturalized citizen. The Armenian Church in Constantinople in 1922 was still using the Julian calendar, thus the Gregorian calendar date of September 9th would have been August 27th under the Julian calendar. I will leave it to the viewer to research the difference between these calendars. For our purposes, though, I began searching Armenian Apostolic Church marriage records beginning at the end of August 1922 and working backward. While baptisms and funerals are recorded in registers for each church separately, there is one combined marriage register for all of the churches of Constantinople, known under the name Istanbul today. In the marriage between Yetvart Carlo Goliti and Manushag Setrag Basturmadjan was quickly found on August 19, 1922. The groom was 28, the bride 18, and it was the first marriage for both. And from the middle names included in this record, we can discern that Yevrat or Edward Goliti's father's name was Carlo, and Manushag's Basturmadjan's father's name was Setrag. Violet was noted to have been born in Garin, the Armenian name for Erzurum. However, I was very shocked to see her spouse, the Italian Edward Goliti, was born in Mush. I will come back to this last point later, but for now we have the name of Violet's father and note that she was born approximately 30 years after Armen Garo. Armen Garo's memoirs were published in Armenian by Hairenik Press in 1948. An English translation was published in 1990 under the title Bank Ottoman Memoirs of Armen Garo. In the early pages of the memoir, Armen Garo supplies some information about his family. His grandfather, Khachadur, was murdered by the Turks in 1872. Khachadur and his wife, Zanazan, were noted to have had the following children: Haruchun, who was the oldest of the children and father of Armen Garo, Sarkis, Dikran, Ohanes, Sophia, and Setrag, who must have been the father of Violet. Thus, we can say now that Violet was, in fact, Armen Garo's first cousin. In addition, Armen Garo did have a sister by the name of Hermine. But the story does not end there. Within the archives of the Armenian Revolutionary Federation, there are private papers of Armen Garo. While there are historically significant letters, like this one dated June 27, 1919, from the iconic Armenian political activist Vahan Kardashian, where you get a glimpse into the traumatic events that contributed to the decline in Armen Garo's health, there are also letters to, from, and about family members. And as luck would have it, one letter addressed Armen Garo as brother and was signed by Sister M.S. Basturmarjan. The letter is dated February 9th, 1922, and the location is the same as that which was used as the address for Manushag in the marriage record. This letter is most assuredly written by Violet or Manushag. While the greeting and closing imply a sibling relationship with Armen Garo, the signature is further proof that Manushag's father was Armen Garo's uncle Setrag. The letter contains other useful information about Manushag's family. She mentions a sister, Yervatuhi, and brothers Levon and Bedros, the sister and two brothers mentioned earlier in the San Francisco Examiner article. Other aspects of the letter confirm that the reference to brother is not literal, but as cousin, and that she is the descendant of Armen Garo's uncle. Let's share now what we have found. Welcome back, Yesso. It has been an interesting exploration into a devastating time in Armenian history. Two sources supplied crucial information on the relationship between Armen Garo and Manushag Basturmarjan, also known as Violet Goliti. I was able to locate the marriage between Manushag and her husband Edward Goliti in the archives of the Patriarchate in Istanbul. The date of the marriage essentially validates the whirlwind romance described in the 1978 San Francisco Examiner article about Violet. The key information from that record was her father's name, Setrag. Note that the marriage interestingly states that Edward was born in Mush and his father's name was Carlos. The other source was the book Bank Ottoman, the memoirs of Armen Garo. In the book, Armen Garo details his family members, including his father's brother, Uncle Setrag. So through this, we can say that Manushag was Armen Garo's first cousin. As luck would have it, the archives of the Armenian Revolutionary Federation contained a collection of Armen Garo's papers, including a letter from Manushag in 1922 to Armen Garo, where her being the child of his uncle is reinforced. We also find a letter from United States Consul in Aleppo, Syria, Jesse Jackson, relaying the whereabouts of other family members and that Armen Garo's sister Hermanez's location was still unknown. The correspondence from other family members in the United States is an area of further research. There was a family in Fresno that was corresponding with him and Armen Garo's son and referred to him as uncle, and there's more exploration that can be done there as well. So, what are your thoughts about the fact that Violet or Manushag was Armen Garo's first cousin?
Wow, that's incredible information to have that verified. To be honest, our longtime derhair from San Francisco, Datev, and Yeretskin Haigan had shared with Musher, and that's how I found out that there might have been a connection. And so knowing that they're first cousins, and knowing that there was correspondence with them, is absolutely fascinating. I've read Orerus Head, or the Bankotaman book by Armen Garo. It's a fascinating book, both on his life and on Bankotaman specifically. And the fact that it's also his family life is in there, and there's a connection there right to San Francisco, my hometown, is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that there are a number of articles in the Hairenik newspapers as well that are included in the material that I've sent you. And they reference her as sister, daughter, but in reality, she was a first cousin. So I think that we can be fairly confident based on the evidence we have that that's the case. Now, the case of Violet's husband, which I found actually equally interesting when I saw that he had been born in Mush. An Italian born in Mush caught my eye, and I wanted to learn more about that. The records pertaining to his father Carlos are equally confusing. Yet it seems Carlos's father, Pietro, was a pharmacist from Catania, Sicily, who had lived in Erzurum from at least the 1860s onward. We will leave the fascinating unanswered questions about the Goliti family for another episode. I hope you found this useful in your own Armenian family history research, and if you have a question for a future episode, please send it to hieroots@hairenik.com.
ليلة طنزارة أغجك دغاق خاقا أصورك سنة طنزارة أغجك دغاق